This is Huffington Post's Third Metric, where we redefine success beyond money and power. Now, there's nothing quite like brewing a good cup of tea. Yeah, surprise, surprise, I'm a Brit that enjoys the leafy stuff. And I'm often scolded for having more than 5 cups a day. Yes, I'm not ashamed. But for tea bashers out there, there's actually evidence that explains that we should be drinking more of it for our health and well-being. Well, joining us now to discuss just why are Chaz Kroll, Executive Director of American Tea Masters Association, and Gary Wenk, author of Your Brain on Food. So Gary and Chaz, thank you so much for joining me today.
Good to be here.
Gary, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about just some of the health benefits of tea.
Well, there are many. Tea is like coffee, and it's often compared to that here in the U.S., where we do a lot more studies on coffee just because so many Americans drink it, as you just commented. There are a lot of benefits. Many of them are related to two main components. One, the caffeine that's in tea. A lot of benefits there. A lot of benefits for helping a person pay attention better during the day, to focus on whatever they're doing, and also the non-caffeine compartments, such as flavonoids, things that are protecting us from oxidants and things that help to slow down the aging process of the brain. There's also a really interesting compound that was discovered called theanine, which we think actually helps people calm down when they're drinking tea. And one more thing, in head-to-head studies with tea and coffee, when we look at cognitive decline with aging, what we find is that tea oftentimes provides more benefit than coffee to people. So I think there are a number of positive things you could say about tea.
So I want to just talk a little bit about the benefits of tea versus coffee in a second, but the theanine chemical that you mentioned is fascinating to me, because I think that when people drink tea, it's often as a pick-me-up. You often drink it in the morning to wake yourself up. I find it fascinating that there is properties of teas that actually are calming as well as, sort of energy boosting and make you more alert. How does that sort of dichotomy work?
Actually, that's a great thing to focus on, because I don't think anybody really appreciated that a stimulant like tea would contain something that, while helping you pay attention, helps calm you down. And I think what they discovered was that by reducing anxiety and also helping you pay better attention, that is why we see so many more benefits with tea due to the presence of that compound. But let me make a parallel. Oftentimes, other drugs that people find to abuse or use has the same effect. One really fascinating example is nicotine. People sometimes go out to smoke cigarettes to actually calm down. So it's not entirely without precedence that a drug that people might find useful throughout the day is going to have this dual effect where it wakes you up but calms you down. That's an amazing combination, I think.
And it is an amazing combination. One of the questions that I have for you is about caffeinated versus uncaffeinated. When you're talking about sort of the teas that make you relax, I'm thinking of Iranian Tea, for instance, that's supposed to help you sleep. I mean, it's a caffeine-free tea. Is it caffeinated teas that help you relax as well, or should you be sticking to the decaffeinated stuff?
You're probably going to be far better sticking to the decaffeinated stuff, mainly because there's the dichotomy that we were just discussing comes from 2 separate chemicals. One, the caffeine, which is going to help you wake up and keep you awake, and for some people, it can significantly delay falling asleep. And then the theanine, the other compounds in the tea that are going to help you relax. So probably better to stick with the decaffeinated teas. Even those will have a little caffeine left in them, but the levels are quite low and are probably not going to be noticed by most people.
And Gary, I just want to ask you one more question before I move on to Chaz, but I have a comment here from Boring File Clerk who says, are some teas better than others? Should we be drinking black teas or green? So, I think that there's been this kind of vogue for having green tea. I know I drink an awful lot of it because I think it's better for me. Is that a myth, or which one is better?
Well, let me answer 2 things. First of all, you introduced yourself by saying you drink more than 5 cups a day, and the epidemiology says you're right on. Yeah, the pharmacological effects are most seen with those kinds of doses.
Fantastic.
And, yeah, I know. But to answer the question, I would like to include a third choice, which is white tea. A lot of research lately has been focusing on this more immature version of the tea bud and the tea leaf, and that seems that version of it, the white teas, may be even more beneficial than the green or black. But if you're choosing black or green, I still think the neurochemistry would support go with the green tea. It's probably far more beneficial.
Okay, so that's good to know. I mean, but aside from just the health properties as well, I mean, there's a real culture built up around tea. I think we're all sort of familiar with coffee culture, but there's this sort of ritualistic element of tea culture. Chaz, tell me a little bit about how you kind of came to tea culture and sort of what attracted you about it.
Well, it's a very interesting subject. It really goes back to essentially a time when the country was founded. Benjamin Franklin proposed to the first Congress in the United States that we create an American tea ceremony. He patterned his thinking after what he saw the Japanese do with the Japanese tea ceremony. So, I mean, we actually have a long history in terms of the culture of tea. The second thing that I think is important was the British imposed a significant tax on the tea being imported into what was then the colonies. And the colonists reacted with the Boston Tea Party by dumping several hundred cases of tea overboard, representing probably a couple $1 million in revenue. Um, and that was really the start of the rebellion of the colonists they had no problem with paying a tax on tea, but they wanted it to go into a U.S. treasury and not into the British anarchy.
I know, Chaz, I'm not going to diss you for bringing up a very sore point in my own cultural history, obviously, and historical history with the Boston Tea Party. But, in terms of your own personal story, tell us a little bit about what happened to you 15 years ago, and your journey with tea.
I read an article on the health benefits of green tea 15 years ago, and it just fascinated me. So I continued to do research on it. I started, and this was 15 years ago. The internet was not as sophisticated then, but I looked at every website that I could find with companies marketing tea. I came across one website that just stood out from all the rest. It was Imperial Tea in San Francisco. I called the owner of the company up on the phone, and I told him what my experience was, and he invited me up to San Francisco to meet with him. So I went up there, had a great meeting with him, and we met for 3 hours, and he served me his finest green tea. It was just a delightful experience for me. And he essentially got me started with opening my own online tea business, which I ran for probably 9 or 10 years. I finally sold it and took a nice long 6-month vacation, quote unquote, to West Africa, Ghana. And it gave me plenty of time to think about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So I ended up starting the American Tea Masters Association, where we now train others to become tea masters all over the world.
And I've got your fantastic site here as well, guys. It's in the resource world. You can check it out, the American Tea Masters Association. And Chaz, I know that you had some teas that you wanted to show us. I'd be really intrigued to know which ones they are.
Absolutely. I'm going to tilt my camera down so you can see this.
Oh, you're a pro. Okay, so what are we looking at here, Chaz?
This is a very unusual tea. It's extremely rare. It's called Gyokuro, and it's a takeoff on the Japanese Gyokuro. Gyokuro in Japan is the premier tea that if you can get your hands on the top grade, it's a delightful experience. The top grade in Japan sells for $1,000 a pound.
Wow.
And it's normally snapped up immediately by the tea connoisseurs in Japan.
So what does it taste like? I mean, for $1,000 a pound, Chaz, I'm really intrigued. What does it taste like?
The taste is unbelievable. I mean, this is like drinking a fine red wine that's 50, 100 years old. Okay, this one is from South Korea. It's from a small tea estate. This is called Gyokuro, but it's processed the same way. It's a partially shaded green tea where they literally put bamboo mats over the tea bushes to filter out about 50% of the sunlight during the last anywhere from 3 to 12 weeks before harvesting. What that does is it causes the chlorophyll to become more concentrated in the leaves, makes them a little greener, produces a slightly greener liquor, and eliminates any possible chance of what's called astringency in the tea or bitterness.
Well, Chaz, I mean, thank you so much for taking some time to explain some of these. Particularly, I'm intrigued to taste the $1,000 a pound tea. It sounds fantastic. And, you know, guys, Gary and Chaz, there's lots of our commenters have been agreeing with you. This is A.H. Leach who says, yes and yes, green organic tea with a hint of mint or peppermint tea are my weaknesses. They are truly soul-soothing, and green tea is also a great pick-me-upper on those days when I am dragging. I have another one here from Darnell E who says lavender is good for tension headaches, which I must say I enjoy lavender tea. And finally, Boring Falkirk says, so the Brits are right. Americans need to adopt tea time in our daily lives, which I fully support. So Gary and Chaz, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks a lot.
All right, guys, last Friday, we brought you a third metric segment about how to survive winter with your dog. And we had 3 dogs from the Sean Casey Animal Shelter here in New York join us on set. And after we learned more about how to keep yourself and your pets active during the winter months, well, we found out a little bit more about the dogs themselves. Let's take a listen. Right, well, Josh and Corinne, thank you so much for joining us today and for bringing all of the dogs with us as well. We had so much fun with them.
Thank you. And don't forget, all these guys are adoptable at Sean Casey Animal Rescue in Brooklyn, New York. nyanimalrescue.org.
That's wonderful. Listen, thank you so much. Well, you guys weren't the only ones watching. Our very own HuffPost Live host, Josh Zepps, was watching too. And unbeknownst to us, he was so enamoured with one of the pups that came to visit us that day that he just had to see him again. And then the HuffPost Live staff got this email and we just had to share it with you. First up, if you're watching HuffPost Live on Friday, you may remember this little gal. And there you can see, well, I went to visit her at the shelter. And after a scary car ride, she now has a home in Brooklyn Heights. And joining me now are Josh and the newest member of our HuffPost Live family, Sydney. Hey, Josh.
Hey.
Hi, Sydney.
Hello, baby.
Oh,
Hello,
my goodness.
baby.
I'm just so excited about this.
I was literally in the studio while this segment was going on, and I just met her before the segment started because I was having lunch out in the hallway, and they walked past with these dogs, and she came up to me and started licking me and put a little paw up on me, and I was like, "Hello, little baby. How are you?" And they said, "Oh, she's doing a segment on HuffPost Live." I was like, "I'm on HuffPost Live," and so then the next day I went back and visited her. And now she has a new home.
And what was it about Sydney that you just really loved more?
Well,
than
she
any
picked
other?
me. I don't know, what was it about me that she loved?
Oh, there's so many things about you, Josh. Are you kidding? We wouldn't have time for this segment for me to list them all.
No, she came up. Well, I've been thinking about getting a dog, and I don't want to get a puppy because little puppies are a pain in the ass when you first get them. I mean, they whine all night, they pee everywhere. So she's basically home trained and basically crate broken and basically kind of understands what it means to be a live dog. She's only a little over 1, so she still feels like a puppy. But she's a little bit less work. And she's affectionate and relaxed.
Well, I was going to say, she looks really at home with you. And, you mentioned that she picked you. I mean, there is something, isn't there, about sort of dogs picking owners? I think
so. I mean, either that or she's just a little whore who just loves everybody. Because there is a little bit of that in her as well. She goes up, she's incredibly affectionate. She goes up to people and says hello. She's great, so far. I mean, it is stressful getting a new dog. It is, I'm not going to lie that it's completely easy. Because, there's this, all of a sudden, this new creature in your house. This animal.
It's just like taking over your life and disrupting your kind of Zen pattern. But I mean, you seem really, I'd say you seem really relaxed and you seem really chill with her. Does it change your personality, do you think, just having her around, having her presence in your house?
Well, it's made me more anxious over the past few days because you always want to make sure that she's happy and that she's not disoriented and that she doesn't need to pee and that she's going outside. Okay, although she knows that she's not supposed to go potty inside, she isn't quite aware yet that when I take her outside, that means that she's supposed to go. So it takes about 6 trips outside in order for her to understand that she's actually supposed to pee.
Oh, well, the HuffPost Live community is obviously extremely supportive of your choice. I have a comment here from Lorna Giles who says, Josh, she's a keeper.
Yes.
We think she's a keeper as
Absolutely.
well. And so, just sort of on the idea of she picking you and you sort of having this new life with her, how is your life going to change, do you think? How is your home life going to change now that you have a dog?
Well, it's lovely cuddling up on the couch with a dog. I mean, there's nothing more lovely than just snuggling and watching some bad TV with a pooch. The only downside, obviously, is that then there are restrictions on what you can do. I travel a lot, and so I'm going to have to think about that, and I'm going to have to think about, you have to go home and make sure. I've been dashing back and forth all week from HuffPost Live to go back home and let her out and give her a pee, and then we'll have to find, dog walkers.
Well, you've probably got about a whole newsroom
There
full
are-
of dogs. The whole
I've
newsroom
had
back there full of
about
dog sitters.
17,000 offers of people to dog sit and to dog walk and so on. So that's really nice. Everyone's super supportive.
I have to say, not that you're a stressy person really anyway. You're usually quite, chilled
Mm-hmm.
and Aussie. But, has she sort of de-stressed you? Do you feel like there are moments where
Yes.
through the day, like after you've come back home?
Well, I grew up with dogs, and they always had that impact. Like, there's nothing lovelier than just walking through the door and having a little tail-wagging creature welcoming you home and then chilling out with you. They're great. It's such a weird thing that dogs are... Hello, baby. How you doing? Hello, hello. It's such a weird thing that dogs are even part of our lives when you actually think about it. If you pulled back and imagined aliens coming down to planet Earth and like looking at human civilization being like, okay, they've domesticated these wolves and they seem to really like them. They seem to have a calming, pleasing effect on human beings. They have this great special relationship with these inbred wolves.
And I have to say, Josh, I mean, you are, I think of you as Mr. Science, and like, you just used some doggy baby language just there. So tell me about this, like, have you been finding yourself being a bit more sort of like, oh, baby, baby?
Yes, a little bit, yes. My cold, pea-sized heart has been warming up to a little bit of hello, baby. A little bit of hello, baby. Hello, baby. I like to talk like that.
For all of those that think Josh Steps is a hard man, you got the proof there. No, not at all. And Boring File Clerk says she seems to be happy with Josh. Dogs are awesome, and we think that
Indeed
Sydney
they are.
is just awesome. Josh, thank you so much. And Sydney, thank you for coming back.
Thank you, baby.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Okay, well, not everybody is a morning person. I know I am not, but thankfully Jack Reinhardt, an entrepreneur and co-founder of threadup.com, is. And he's just published on Entrepreneur this delightful article. You can see it on my computer now. 5 morning rituals to keep you productive all day long. Some handy tips about how to get the most out of our mornings in just 5 steps. So I'm going to relay them to you now. Number 1, 7 minutes of exercise. Number 2, start your day out green. Number 3, pick 3 wins for the day. Number 4, block your calendar to achieve wins. And number 5, power up after lunch. And so now, we're looking at the article, wins are kind of like sort of personal achievements that you set yourself as opposed to sort of the grander scheme of things and people externally putting these goals on you. So it's all about your own personal kind of wins. So I am, and green, by the way, is green juice, just in case you're wondering. It's not about being green-fingered, it's green juice. So I am going to put this and his tips to the test for the rest of this week. Yes, I am. Tweet me at CaroMT and let me know how you all get on to try and do this 5-step morning routine. We're all in this battle together. All right, guys, finally, I want to bring up our wonderful quote of the day that we're going to leave you with here. There it is. Okay, so we want to leave you with this 3rd metric quote of the day. Now, it's the desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul. And that's Ida Uchtdorf. And you can send us your favourite quotes, of course, or photos by tweeting at CaroMT with the hashtag 3rd metric. And don't forget that Ariane Huffington and Mika Brzezinski are taking 3rd metric on a 3-city tour to New York, DC and Los Angeles. Tickets are on sale now, and you can find out all the information on how to be there by clicking on the link in our resource well below. Stick around, more HuffPost Live coming up next.